Your new or existing home is one of your most important assets, yet too many people rely on sites, shows, and tips from people who are not in the real estate business when making important decisions. It's time to get real and trust a professional. This is Real Estate Today with host Deb Tomaro. In this series, you'll learn about making smart decisions when it comes to buying a home, selling a home, or even staying in the home you're in. Now, here is your host, Realtor Deb Tomaro.
Well, hello. Welcome to Real Estate Today. I am your host, Deb Tomaro. We used to joke when I was in grad school and I got married. I'm not married anymore, but anyways. And I changed my name to Tomaro, and they said I sound like a superhero, like a future girl. Deb Tomaro. And I have to say I'm not feeling very futuristic right now because I seem to be having some technical issues, as usual, per usual. But anyways, we'll figure them out. So no problem. So I am your host. We are here to talk about all things real in real estate. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I am joined, as usual, by the lovely Miss Karen Rastel.
Hello.
Best damn lender in the state of Indiana.
Thank you.
How are you doing, Karen?
I'm doing great. How about you?
You know, it's December. I feel like I have senioritis.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually cold today. It's been in the 60s for quite a while, and now it's not.
They're saying maybe snow Saturday.
Nice.
Hey, I don't know.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. We'll see. We shall see. So, anything exciting happen? Anything good on TV? I feel like I'm like out of touch. My mother calls me.
Okay, good. I thought that was a trick question because I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been watching TV in a while.
But no, my mother calls me, and then my dad gets on the phone, and he's like talking about. He goes, "Well, you played Michigan today," and I'm like, and by you he means Indiana University, okay. Right? Okay, I figured that much, right? And I'm like, is that football or basketball? And usually I'm up on that, at least on the basketball stuff.
Right.
I was just like, Dad, I'm so out of touch with anything. I said, if it's not on people.com, I can't tell you.
That is funny.
I said, so if you want to talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, I'm down with it. But anything else going on in the world, I'm completely lost.
No, I haven't really watched any new shows or anything. I just haven't had time. I'm sure I have a ton of things DVR'd right now.
Yeah, I had someone, who was it? Somebody in my office the other day, and they were like, have you watched, do you know such and such show? I'm like, no.
Yeah. No.
As I say, usually, if it doesn't take place in Alaska, we don't typically watch it at my house.
That could have been you and I we were talking about.
Well, probably was.
We were talking about the Long Island medium, and I said, because you were asking me like what was going on, I'm like, I don't know, but I think the other medium has the corner in the market.
Oh, right.
And you're like, yeah, it doesn't take place. And
so I will say TLC, yeah. I think it's Sunday nights, they do Long Island Medium, which I really enjoy that show, but I don't typically watch it because Eurus isn't into it, and I usually sob like a baby, so then I can't do anything Monday morning because my eyes are all puffy from crying.
I didn't know this about
yeah.
you. Okay.
That's an issue. And now TLC has added Long Lost Family before Long Island Medium, which is another whole sob fest.
Okay.
And so that's like, I can't leave the house for 2 days after that. So I haven't been watching it, but I'm obsessed with Long Lost Family.
Okay.
I watch it on YouTube. There's a BBC version that takes place in Britain. And it's the premise of the show. This has nothing to do with real estate, but they all live in houses, so there you go. That there's a family member. A lot of times it's a parent or a child through adoption that they're trying to reconnect with. But there are also, and especially the ones that take place in Britain, some really heart-wrenching wartime stories of little children who are separated from family. But there's always some really, really interesting and unique stories, too, that just kind of make you go, wow. And then they reunite, and it's very emotional. And so I've been watching those to try and sort of become more black-hearted and not cry so much. You figure if you watch enough, you become a little more...
Okay, if you say so. No, I cry like a fool every whenever This Is Us is on. So, that's my...
That's my show I haven't watched.
Oh, you should watch that one. So,
all right, so anyways, that's the latest on TV. I don't know what's going on HGTV, but whatever. Oh, did you hear Dale Earnhardt Jr.? You know he's a race car driver, right?
I do know he's a race car driver.
That's all I know. He's got a show coming up on HGTV probably in the spring.
Okay.
I think he's retiring maybe. I'm not really sure because I'm not into the NASCAR scene, but I was looking up what some new HGTV shows are because there's new stuff coming out. And he and his wife have a place in Key West, and they're fixing it up.
So they're going to do a whole show over.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Key West, which should be interesting. I do like Key West a lot, but it should be interesting because they had all that hurricane damage.
Right.
And so I guess Dale's been going around telling people, come to Key West, we're open for business kind of thing, trying to help promote people coming back to Key West. Maybe the show will help with that too. So that should be interesting. All right. So today I thought we would talk about what it's like to be a realtor. I know that sounds really weird. So I've asked Karen to kind of interview me.
Or what it's like to be Deb Tomaro.
We don't know what it's like to be me, because, that just isn't going to paint a realistic picture at all because of my glamorous lifestyle. But I've had 2 people in the past week and a half come to me, and I get this fairly regularly, where they say, I'm really interested in being a realtor. Can I sit down and talk to you? And I think it's great to have that person that you can sit down and talk to. I tell the story about when I was thinking about becoming a realtor. I was talking to someone who was a realtor at the time, and she said, "Oh, no, honey, you're too smart for real estate."
Well, that's not very nice.
Yeah, I did it anyways, regardless of that, because I was like, I'm not that smart.
I would have been like, do tell, like, keep talking.
Yeah,
like,
and I never really, I didn't push that, and I probably should have. I think, 11 years on, I have moments where I'm like, oh, that's what she meant. But actually, it was funny because just this morning I was doing some final prep work on the show, and my phone rang, and I answered it, and it's this lady, and she's like, "My name is so-and-so, you don't know me." I'm like, okay. And she said, "Well, I work at this place," and she named a past client of mine, and I have time off in the summer, and I thought maybe I should do some real estate.
Oh, so she called to see if you could offer some, moment of your time to give her some inside info or intel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So... So anyways, it was kind of like, well, gosh, I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
It was just really weird.
Tell her to tune in. Yeah.
I might say.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, well, let's cover this. But I thought, maybe it would be good for Karen to interview me rather than me just sit here and talk about what I think people should know.
Well, and I'll do my best, but for those that are maybe just tuning in to this show or maybe haven't heard some of your beginning shows last year, why don't you tell the listeners, like, what got you into real estate, or what was that pivotal moment that you thought to yourself, I think I would like to make this a career?
It's kind of out of necessity.
Okay.
So let's see. Long story short, I met a boy, and he lived here in Bloomington, and I lived in another city, working a job, living in, condo, yada, yada. And I was down visiting for a weekend, and we spontaneously bought a house together after we had been dating for a few months.
Because that happens. That happens.
Spontaneous, And then it was like, oh, I need to find a job down here. Now, I had gone to school down here. All my friends were jealous that I was coming back to the college town. And so the plan was to buy a property management company. Okay. So I started working for a property manager down here, working on getting my real estate license. Quickly realized that property management was not for me. It just wasn't a great fit unless they were my own properties. And so I looked around and said, well, what else can I do? We're a smallish town, and there's not a lot of corporate jobs, which is what my experience had always been.
Right.
And never, ever, I had always said sales is my worst nightmare.
Did you always approach this as a sales job, or do you think of it more of relationship building?
I think of it more as a service provider. Mm-hmm. I don't, but it is sales. You have to kind of go out and beat the pavement. And I think that's one of the really important things for people to understand about real estate. You have to, every single day, build your business. Mm-hmm. And that means going and finding new clients. And that's hard for me. That's not natural for my personality.
Yeah. I know a lot of times people, when they hear the word salesperson, it almost like paralyzes them in a sense. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I'm not a good salesperson, but I feel like I can go and have conversations with people in different social settings and maybe from that piece then build something. So it is a lot of hard work when you are looking constantly, you're looking for the next opportunity.
Yeah, you're constantly, call it filling your pipeline, constantly filling your pipeline. And I think a lot of it is the mindset. And I never went into, I say that, and somebody will take offense to this and whatever, it's internet radio, I can say whatever I want, right? But what I call a Mary Kay mindset, Mary Kay cosmetics are great cosmetics, but sometimes, and I have been burned by this in the past, a Mary Kay, I've met Mary Kay people, not all of them, but I have met some who really have no intention of any other interest in their life except selling you cosmetics. Mm-hmm. When I first got divorced, I had a very nice Mary Kay lady. She came over to my house. We met a few times. I was pretty, depressed and lonely or whatever because I was divorced and just trying to figure out my life. Mm-hmm. And I really thought, this lady wants to be my friend. That's nice. I just don't have a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. And, 2 breaths later, she's like, so let's talk about, you becoming a Mary Kay rep and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa. And I felt so stupid and naive. Mm-hmm. And I know they're not all like that.
Right.
I know that. And it's a good product. But you kind of get that. I always want to be really authentic, and that's how I approach it, so it doesn't feel real salesy to me. Okay. Should we go to break, and then we can come back and kind of get into a little bit more?
It's your show. Let's go to break, and then when we come back,
take the reins back for a second.
We'll go into more detail about thinking outside the box, looking for the next potential client and the next deal.
This is so fun, being interviewed by Karen. I know Rachel's sitting here like, this is fun. All right, stick around, and we'll be back with Karen Rassel on Real Estate Today, your home for smart real estate.
The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
Are you interested in buying or selling a home? Not sure what the next step is? Deb can help. Go to realrealestatetoday.com and click on Start Here. You'll be asked a few simple questions, and Deb will personally contact you to help answer your real estate questions and connect you with a realtor in her personal nationwide network of realtors. So even if you aren't in Deb's service area, you're guaranteed to find a good match wherever you are. Visit realrealestatetoday.com.
Are you finding your frequency? It can be described as that space between failure and success. It's the future of digital media. It's finding your voice. It's engaging topics, content, and ideas. Jeff and Ryan discuss the digital media space and all of its aspects. It's about making the mistakes, taking the chances, summoning the intestinal fortitude to step out of your comfort zone, and discovering what you can accomplish when you decide to try, decide to learn, decide that you have something to say, and find your frequency. Live Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
You count. Tune into Inner Revolutionary Radio and join the spontaneous wave of people all over the planet who, like you, are changing our world from the inside out. Follow the movement. Meet guests who are shaking things up. Call in and gain insights and courage to empower your own voice. Large or small, your part counts. So join us. Co-hosted by Helen Hillocks, Todd Benton, and Chris Reeves. Inner Revolutionary Radio airs live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Streaming live. The leader in Internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
You are listening to Real Estate Today. To reach Deb tomorrow or with questions and comments about the show, please send an email to Deb at realrealestatetoday.com. That's Deb at realrealestatetoday.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Welcome back. We are talking today about what it's like to be a realtor. It's like a realistic job preview, we used to call it back in my old HR days. So I'm making Karen interview me, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Which, by the way, it is completely awkward, but
terribly entertaining for me.
I know right before break we were discussing, I said, well, when we come back from break, let's talk about how you do find the next client or, where those resources are. But I do want to cut straight to the big question that I think a lot of people may want to know how this works, which is we may see realtors making their own schedules and getting paid massive amounts of money. Like, right. I don't know. Like, I watch $1 Million Listings. Don't get me wrong. I love that show. It's very drama filled, and I think that's what attracts me to it. But we do know that it's not always high priced, high commissions. How does this, how would you want to explain to someone coming in how this actually works? Because they may have no idea, and they may think that your company pays you a small salary or something each month.
I'm always amazed when people come in and want to have that conversation with me about being a realtor, and they say, well, what's your base salary? And I laugh and laugh and laugh because there is none. It is strictly 100% commission. I'm an independent contractor, which means that no one pays my taxes for me. No one gives me benefits. I have no health insurance unless I pay for it myself. There's a lot that comes out of that commission check before you see your my checkbook, right? And it depends on how your brokerage is set up too. But yeah, you need to set aside, at least 25% for your taxes, and then probably another 25% for your expenses. And then you still have, your advertising budget for your listings and things like that. So it's not, and I read somewhere and I meant to print it out, and I guess I didn't because I was looking through my notes here. But I think if I can remember correctly, in 2016, the average realtor made somewhere around $42,000.
Is that nationwide?
That's nationwide. Okay. 2015, the year before, it was $45,000, so it actually went down. Now, there's a lot of factors that play into that average. Obviously, there are a lot of not full-time realtors out there, and that kind of thing. But the ones that you see on TV are really few and far between. You can make a good living, and that's why I do this, but
let me ask this. So I know this answer, but if you are the listing agent or if you're the buyer's agent, are you paid the same?
It depends. That's the one thing I'm not really allowed to talk about.
Okay.
Isn't that funny? You have things all the time that you're not allowed to talk about. We're not really allowed to talk about commission and specifics. But what's interesting is that commission is typically paid by the seller.
That's what I was hinting to.
And so that is something that's negotiated between the seller and the listing agent. And then the listing agent agrees to share a portion of that with the buyer's agent. But there's no hard and fast rule. So it doesn't have to be shared equally.
Which I think a lot of people may think, if the standard commission rate is X amount, we're going to split that evenly. So do you find it, would someone find it hard to maybe try to budget like month to month, or, especially starting out when you are probably having a lot more expenses because those are out of pocket versus, like the company or your broker paying for it, correct?
Right. It's really difficult. One of the best pieces of advice that I was given and that I give people is that you need to plan on not getting paid for 6 months when you start. And that was about true for me. And then it kind of starts slowly, but there are certainly months that I don't make any money. And there's other months that I make a ton of money. And so you have to budget yourself, but you budget yourself on this unknown income. And so it is certainly tricky. And you kind of say, well, I've got a big emergency fund. So, I'm not panicked all of the time, but there are months where I kind of go, I can't really do that this month.
Well, I think that's definitely important to reiterate that, especially when you're starting out, that just bank on, that's what when I first went commission in my position, I told my husband, just bank on zero. And anything over that, then we'll, right. So I think when you're first starting out, because you're not for sure how much it's going to cost to advertise, or to be affiliated with like maybe certain organizations, or just to start branding yourself. So how does when working independently or like on your own, and I may not even say this correctly, versus working for a company where they'll hold your license, like what are some pros and cons to that? Or would you suggest someone who's starting out in the business to maybe get with a company?
There's kind of three different models. So there's the model where it's I'm going to call it a parent brokerage, where they will cover your costs for you as a new realtor, but you give them a large chunk of your commission. So they're carrying the risk because they're paying for a lot of your monthly expenses. And if you don't sell anything, then they're going to kind of eat that. But if you sell a lot, they're taking a big chunk. So there's a pros and cons to that. But those brokerages, and I started at a brokerage like that, they have a lot of really good training programs, which is really, really important. But then a lot of people will move to slightly more independent brokerages where you're still, in a brokerage with, a big name like RE/MAX, like I am, but they kind of leave you alone. And I pay all my own expenses. So I get a bill every month for my office rent, for my color copies, for
That's what I was going to say. If you could give some examples of what some monthly expenses by having office space or being affiliated. Okay. Yeah. So you pay for your own copies.
I pay for everything. I pay for my phone. I pay for my computer. I pay for my IT support. I pay for my desk. I mean, literally pay for my furniture. Like I get an empty room for X number of dollars a month, and I get some front office support, and I get black and white copies, and I get a phone line, which nobody uses because we all use cell phones.
Right.
And I get internet service. And that's, about it.
And I don't think a lot of people even think that because you just think, okay, well, there's all these offices in, in that real estate office and that one's free. I'll take it. Like that one's available, not free. But,
But I had to find my own computer. I have to find my own furniture. I have to do all of that.
Okay.
Just like I would be if I were on my own. Now, if I'm on my own, a lot of people, when you're starting out, you can't go directly on your own. You have to work under a broker for a certain number of years. And if I'm on my own, then I'm on an island unto myself. And there's pros and cons to that. I've always kind of jokingly said, I don't want to have to place my own open house ads. I would prefer to just send an email to a staff person and be like, here's the open house I want to do. They'll charge me for it. They'll talk to the newspaper about it, and it's done. But if you're your own independent brokerage, you negotiate your rates with the newspaper for open house ads and all that stuff.
You're doing all of that. Okay.
So I'm trying to find that balance of, having enough freedom. That's what works for me. But that maybe isn't necessarily the best scenario for a new agent starting out who needs a little bit more support. And there are those scenarios out there, but it costs you a lot.
So let me ask this. So have you had someone ever ask, well, you work for a well-known national company or the name. Do you have a great retirement plan? Do you have health benefits? Right. Those type of things.
Yeah, we have nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
I once heard, and it could have came from you like years ago, but I once heard someone say, the only retirement that a realtor would have is to have their own properties, okay? And then hopefully by the time they're ready to retire, that those are paid off and it's just income producing.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to retire.
Yeah. It's funny. We had a realtor in our office retire last year, and she got up and gave a little speech, and she said, my advice to everyone is to buy one property for every year that you're in real estate. And that's your retirement plan.
So were you like, okay,
and I was then I can
I'm ahead of the game right
I got 26, so I'm good to go.
Yeah.
There isn't, you have to be smart with your money. And I certainly, the taxes is another big one. You got to stay on top of those taxes. There's no one telling you, it's not getting taken out of your paycheck.
Yeah.
You have to have the discipline to set that aside. And I certainly think that probably in the real estate profession, there's a higher occurrence of people in tax trouble.
Sure.
Because that's hard to do. And, if you need to make the mortgage payment or pay your estimated quarterly taxes, you probably make the mortgage payment.
Right.
And then you get deeper and deeper in a hole.
Then that goes to probably another expense about hiring an accountant or, a financial advisor or someone to take care of that, for you when the time comes to file your taxes and how are you going to file.
Right.
And, so that
definitely adds to, that what comes off of your commission and what you need to set aside. But I don't mean to make it sound, I don't want this whole thing to end up being like negative, like it's so bad. No, because it just is what it is.
Right. But I think a lot of times, I think that is probably like the burning question that a lot of people have, that it's like, oh, it has what appears to be like flexible hours and the money must be good. Otherwise, why would so many people be doing it? And so I felt like we would just get straight to that piece, but then we'll definitely talk about, like what keeps you passionate about staying in the business for as long as you have and what keeps you going.
Right. I do want to add that I think one of the really great benefits to real estate, being a realtor, at least the way that my business is set up and being a part of RE/MAX, as opposed to other small businesses. I'm a big fan of small businesses, and we have some other small businesses of our own. But in real estate, one of the greatest things is that I don't worry much about collecting, I worry about getting paid, but I don't worry about collecting the money. And that's an amazing part, because I see a lot of small businesses struggle with trying to get paid for the work that they've done and trying to stay on top of billing and all of that sort of thing. And with real estate, it's awesome because you go to a closing, the title company cuts you the check, and and you're good to go.
Well, I was going to ask that.
So that's amazing.
So realtors get paid after a closing, but after maybe expenses and whatever's taken out from your broker. I mean, you don't.
It can be done that way.
Okay.
There's different ways to do it. I get a monthly bill from my broker. So they just kind of track expenses during the month, and then I get a bill at the end of the month that I then have 5 days to pay, kind of thing. But other brokerages that do what's called the split method, where they're covering your expenses, they're just taking a chunk, a negotiated chunk of your commission.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the title company at closing issues a check to your brokerage. So I get a check, I bring it back to RE/MAX, and then they cut me a check.
And then that again goes back to being disciplined. If that's how a pay structure is for someone, is that once you do get that invoice once a month, that you have 5 days to produce whatever that amount is back to your brokerage.
So you kind of need to keep track of what's coming up and what's
absolutely.
I think for me it's I'm always looking ahead several months on expenses, because anything I do, I'm 30 to 45 days out getting paid. So, it's not like, crap, I need to make some money next week. It doesn't work like that, because I should have been doing that 6 weeks ago. So I'm always kind of have my budgeted list of, here are the big expenses. Oh, it's property tax time coming up in 2 months. I need to make sure that, I'm ready for that. Should we take another break?
Yeah, I think it's time for our next break.
Okay. We'll take a break and be back with Karen and Real Estate Today, your home for smart real estate.
Streaming live, the leader in Internet Talk Radio, VoiceAmerica.com.
Are you interested in buying or selling a home? Not sure what the next step is? Deb can help. Go to realrealestatetoday.com and click on Start Here. You'll be asked a few simple questions, and Deb will personally contact you to help answer your real estate questions and connect you with a realtor in her personal nationwide network of realtors. So even if you aren't in Deb's service area, you're guaranteed to find a good match wherever you are. Visit realrealestatetoday.com.
In the spirit of Have Couch Will Travel, Dr. Carol Lieberman creates a haven of sanity in an increasingly insane world. Each day we are bombarded with news of events that have never crossed our wildest nightmares. Society is spiraling out of control and everyone is reeling from it. But now there's an answer. The best way to keep sane in this insane world is to tune in to Dr. Carol's Couch on Voice America. Dr. Carol, a certified media psychiatrist, will broadcast live from her Beverly Hills office every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Call or log in and get help with whatever is sending you reeling, whenever you need a soothing voice to calm and advise you. That's Dr. Carol's Couch every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time here on America's Voice, VoiceAmerica.com.
What if there was a radio show that could demonstrate how we can cut your taxes in half without diminishing needed government services? One that could explain how to create tens of millions of jobs at no cost to taxpayers, as well as fantastic yet easily affordable health care. Side effects include cutting crime rates nationwide, providing better education for our children, international peace and harmony, and protecting your private personal data from government intrusion. Tune in to Libertarians Working for You with Arvin Vora, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on Voice America Variety.
Tune in to The Patricia Raskin Show on VoiceAmerica.com every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time. This is the program that helps you turn obstacles into opportunities, challenges into solutions, and find answers to tough questions with the award-winning powerhouse voice of radio, Patricia Raskin. So tune in and call in to The Patricia Raskin Show, Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time, right here on the Voice America Variety Channel.
the Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
You are listening to Real Estate Today. To reach Deb tomorrow or with questions and comments about the show, please send an email to Deb at realrealestatetoday.com. That's Deb at realrealestatetoday.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Right, back to the show. We are talking today. I am being interviewed today by my lovely cohort, Karen, about what it's like to be a realtor. For anyone who's contemplating, I thought this would be appropriate for people who are contemplating maybe a career change next year. Mm-hmm. Let's start to talk about what it's really like so that you don't, throw in the towel on something without knowing. So what did you want to ask me next?
The next thing that I wanted to ask is, when is it, or at what point, or is it a certain part of the process do you feel the most successful in what you do?
Why I like to do what I do, right? When I feel good about it. I just had this a few weeks ago. I had a client and we looked at a couple of houses. He kind of had a first choice and a second choice, was having a hard time making a decision between the two. Ended up having a lot of people talking in his ear is what I always say. Mm-hmm. Family members and friends, and everybody has their opinion, wants to tell you what you should do. And I was able to sort of help him. I see my role as sort of a guide, and so I spend a lot of time saying, here are your choices, because I think everybody likes to have choices, and here are the pros and cons to each choice. And that's as far as I go. Now you make the decision from there. And he sent me the nicest email back that said, wow, you're really good at what you do, because that just really helped me feel really confident about what I was doing. So that's when I feel really good. That's what I really love about what I do. It's funny because people will come to me and say, well, I want to be a realtor because I love to look at houses. I love decorating. I don't love decorating. I'm kind of so-so on looking at houses. I'm pretty fast. Like I can assess something. I'm like, okay, I'm done, and then I'm sitting waiting for everyone else. That's not what makes me love this job. And I don't know that that's what makes someone a good realtor, but I think having a passion for helping guide people to make really good decisions that they feel good about and that's good for them, decisions that are good for them, not good for the realtor.
Well, I think that's a great approach because, I guess there could be people who maybe need to be told, like maybe they don't know how to make that decision and they're looking to you as the resource and like, oh, please just help me decide. And you're taking that approach as to this is your biggest decision. Right. You should decide what, make them come to that conclusion. Yeah. So, and
I think, a lot of these reality shows, you see the realtor trying to make the decisions for people. Well, we're going to do this. And it's like, that's not really what it's about. And I always just kind of say, no, I'm not the one that has to live with it. So,
do you ever feel discouraged during any time of, like, it could be like the slowest part, or I know like sometimes if in my world, if you've worked really hard with a client, but then they go to they're going to use someone else. Yeah. Sometimes that can be discouraging. Do you ever experience things like that?
Real estate is really, really weird. And that was one of the things that I realized early on after sort of being naive about things. And you're in this business where your colleagues are also your competitors. And it creates just this really odd dynamic that can be really, really discouraging. When I started at my first brokerage, which was more of that parenting brokerage kind of, they had kept a lot more control. You were a lot less independent there, which is great when you're starting out. They would send an email out at the end of the day to all the agents in the office. There were probably 40 agents in the office, listing out who had sold a house that day, who had turned in like a accepted offer kind of thing. And
how did that make you feel?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I the story of how I got started in real estate, not how I became a realtor, but what my first year was like, is kind of an interesting story. So I had a pretty good year. but it also made me feel like people were looking at me, made me feel like I was a bit of a target, because here I was after the first 6 months of doing nothing, where I was selling multiple houses a day sometimes, and people didn't really understand the whole story, and it made people kind of, there's jealousy, and because they don't really understand the situation. It was just like a weird dynamic. Like, who is this new person? Why is she getting all this business? Kind of thing. So that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I have a friend who worked at that same brokerage with me back there, and she's now at Remax with me now, and she said she never even opened those emails because they were so discouraging for her. Because if you're going through a slow period, which we all do, it's hard to not compare yourself to everyone else.
Like, what are they doing that I'm not doing?
Right,
or if you are, purposely scaling back a little bit because for whatever reason you're going to go on vacation or something. But so it was more of a let's build maybe some competitiveness. Within the. It
was not intended for healthy reasons. I'm sure it was to build competitiveness, but sometimes that competitiveness just leads to discouragement. And then a friend of ours in our brokerage, this was just a few months ago, for some reason, to a group of us, print it out. We can go into our MLS system and see everybody's sales for the year and the whole board of realtors, like in all of Bloomington. And she printed it out and she put it in our mailboxes and she highlighted our names, and we're like, maybe we didn't want to know that. Like, I purposely wasn't looking at the numbers this year because, my year's not as good this year as it was last year, and I didn't want to get discouraged. I wanted to just set goals for myself.
Right.
And meet those goals. I didn't want my goals to be comparing myself to other people. And that's so key in real estate. And it's such a valuable skill in life, but it's so hard to do, to not compare yourself to other people.
Or at least wait until you're ready to see those numbers, like maybe after the calendar year is over, and then go back and take a look. So,
but I don't know that it even matters what, the next person does. It doesn't matter if I'm doing what I need to do to meet my goals, to move my life forward, to support my family. It doesn't matter what John Smith is, how much he's selling.
True, but if one of your goals were to be, I don't know, like I want to be in the top 15% of agents in my market or something like that. Right. I think access to those numbers would be beneficial.
But I think most of us come from I want to make this much money this year, or I want to sell this much, which then results in a certain average amount of commissions.
So that sounds like one of the things that you would recommend to someone as far as having one of the skills to have to be successful is to do your best not to always be comparing yourself, especially to, I don't want to call them office mates, I guess. Or
they're colleagues and they're competitors.
Right.
You're going up against them to try and get listings. And sometimes you're in competition. You have a buyer, they have a buyer, and you're competing for the same house. So it's weird, too, that you can't, when I came in to real estate, I came from a corporate environment, and they preach teamwork all the time, right? Collaborative and teamwork and brainstorm and all that stuff. And I got into real estate, and I kind of came in with the same attitude, and I very quickly was made to see how naive I was. Like, no, we all reinvent the wheel. We, try to accomplish the same things, but we don't tell each other how we accomplish them because we don't want to give anybody a competitive advantage. So it's a weird dynamic. And so you can't talk with your colleagues about what you're doing. Because, I can't say, I've got a client who's interested in such and such a house, because they might have a client who's also interested in such and such a house. So you're very much in this little silo of working, and your spouse usually gets really sick of hearing about it.
I can definitely relate. I mean, that's how I grew up in that kind of, or my professional career is in that same, you're part of a team and everyone works together for the good of the group. But then when you go out and you work for another company where you're all housed in that same building, you do have to sometimes be guarded with what you're doing, because it's like giving out your trade secrets.
Right. We lock our doors and we, just kind of do things on the down low sometimes and try not to flaunt them too much. It's just weird. And
Well, what's another skill that you would want someone to know, or some important skills to have to be successful in real estate?
I think one of the big ones is that I would strongly encourage people to invest in themselves, invest in training. I kind of joke sometimes that real estate is cheaper than going to law school, because you just go to a 9-week class or whatever, and you get your real estate license. And you think, I paid $1,000 or whatever it is, and
right.
and I'm good now. I've got a career and great. And you really need to, continue to budget and put money aside for developing yourself, because the classes that you take to get licensed don't tell you anything about setting up your business and how to build a long-term business, how to continue to fill the pipeline, how to do it in a way that's authentic and comfortable. And what's important, and how you negotiate.
Do you think it would give someone maybe an edge on if there was some new things on the horizon, or just to be, maybe just one step ahead of your competition, to have the additional training or a refresher course in something? I
think it's like the best thing is just finding someone that can mentor you, that's willing to take the time, and that's going to cost you some money, but it's totally worth doing to have a longevity of career. I can't tell you how many realtors I see pop up, and then after literally 2, 3, 4 weeks, I never see them again. There's a lot of people like that.
Okay. I would never have known that.
We get a big announcement, so-and-so's joined such and such company, and then you never see them again. And it could be because they didn't have money set aside to go for that 6 months. Or it could be that they just didn't have any guidance, and they just felt like they were flailing and not making any headway, and not feeling very successful. And so finding that guidance is so important. And there's different ways to go about it, whether it's through brokerages or through independent mentors, but I think it's really, really important.
Okay.
Should we take our last break?
Yeah, I think we'll take our last break, and then if we can, because I know we try to do this on every show, we'll try to do the top 10, your top 10 things.
I don't think I can talk that fast.
Oh, yes, you can.
Okay, we'll try. All right, so stick around. You're listening to Real Real Estate Today, your home for smart real estate.
Stimulating talk
gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
all the time. The #1 internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
Are you interested in buying or selling a home? Not sure what the next step is? Deb can help. Go to realrealestatetoday.com and click on Start Here. You'll be asked a few simple questions, and Deb will personally contact you to help answer your real estate questions and connect you with a realtor in her personal nationwide network of realtors. So even if you aren't in Deb's service area, you're guaranteed to find a good match wherever you are. Visit realrealestatetoday.com.
What makes a great leader? Most have a vision, one that starts beyond the resources available and continues from that point into developing a solid plan, organization, and company. Leadership issues are discussed each week on Voltcast, Illuminating Leadership with host Jeff Smith. Jeff has years of experience as a leader and executive coach, and his guests will bring you information that can help a team of any size. Listen every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Variety.
Streaming live. The leader in internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
You are listening to Real Estate Today. To reach Deb Tomaro or with questions and comments about the show, please send an email to Deb at realrealestatetoday.com. That's Deb at realrealestatetoday.com. Now, back to this week's program.
We're back talking about what it's like to be a realtor. If you're considering a career change, we're just trying to give you some general ideas, not trying to sway you one way or the other, just trying to be realistic. I've been a realtor for 11 years, and so it's the longest period of time I've ever done one thing. So I must love it. So I'm certainly not trying to sway anybody against it, but I want people to be successful, so I want them to have a realistic idea of what to expect. So I've asked Karen to interview me so that it's not just me talking.
Yeah, and we've covered what, why you got into real estate, and then we talked about the financial piece, when you get paid, how you get paid, and taking care of your taxes and things, so you don't have Uncle Sam coming after you year after year. And then we talked about things that that you felt would make someone successful, or that they should. Not possess, I guess, but a characteristic or things that they can do. But if you could maybe, we'll see how much time we have, if you want to maybe just cover like the top 10 tips that you would give to someone, and maybe not in any order, but just 10 important things if you want to see someone have, their best foot forward.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is, the skills that you need to be a successful realtor. We talked about before. It's not about decorating. It's not about houses at all, in my opinion. It's about being organized and focused, prioritizing, clearly communicating, guiding people. But you also have to be really independent and self-driven. I know when I started, I kind of had this fear. I'd always worked corporate jobs where you kind of had to be somewhere at a certain time sort of thing. And I thought, there's really no one I'm an independent contractor. No one's making me be anywhere at any point in time. I could sit on the couch and watch Ellen all day and nobody would care except my banker. And so you have to be self-driven. Turns out I'm more self-driven than I thought. And that hasn't been an issue for me. But in the beginning, I was like, oh, man, I'm going to be screwed. I'm just going to sit and watch TV all day. And you certainly need to be confident because you are acting as an expert. So those are some of the kind of the personal skills. Some things on my list of, top 10. If you want to succeed as a new realtor, like I said before, don't expect to get paid for 6 months. Be prepared for that going in. Have a plan for surviving. Like I said, I see so many realtors literally disappear in their first few weeks. Some people work another job. I did a few things when I started. I did manage a couple properties for a guy, and I helped one summer with some turnovers. My first summer, I was, had one closing. With the rental turnovers because it's college town and there's 200 turnovers to happen in a week and they needed people to help. And so I did some things like that, but I didn't, take another job. I mean, I really put all in. This is what I was going to do and this is what I was going to be successful at. And I think that's really important to do, to take that leap of faith. Kind of the law of attraction, this is who I am. I'm a realtor now, as opposed to I'm doing this part-time. Yeah, realtor. Another thing is to kind of be humble, especially around those who have put in their time. I think that's so important. One of the biggest things that people don't realize is that although it is your relationship with your clients that's important and fills your pipeline, your relationship with other realtors is really important too. And so, kind of having respect for people who have earned their time and not, artificial. Karen will tell you I'm one of the snarkiest people out there about other realtors. I'm certainly not winning at this advice that I'm giving necessarily, but, I want to be the realtor that people want to work with. And because that's going to help my clients get their deal done. I see a lot of new realtors who come in and they kind of are over exuberant like a little puppy and they're sending emails out to all the realtors like 6 times a day. And it's like, oh my God, stop. Because I know you don't have that much going on yet because you're new, but we have, I'm getting 300 emails a day and you're sending emails out every hour. Make it stop. So kind of having some self-awareness, and that's a great reason why having a mentor around you, someone who's been in the business for a while, can help you guide that so that you can slide right in easily and kind of blend in. I think that's really helpful. Continuing training, we talked about finding a brokerage or a mentor who will keep training you is really important to success. Investing in yourself and your business. So, budgeting. You really need to have a budget that says for every commission check, this percentage gets set aside for taxes, this percentage gets set aside for training, for further development so that you continue to be really good at what you do. There's tons of training opportunities out there. Pay your taxes. I mean, it sounds silly, but I can tell you, I know a lot of realtors who are in tax trouble. So pay your taxes, understand how that works. I very, very quickly incorporated I was advised that was sort of the best scenario for me, and I actually pay someone to do my payroll taxes for me because it keeps me up at night, the IRS coming to take me, because I didn't know I was supposed to do something. So for me, I get that peace of mind from paying an accountant to do my payroll for me and make sure that my taxes
I would totally
get paid.
do that. I would totally do
really,
that.
It's really important. Don't just get yourself stuck in one niche. And this is a real quick story because I think we're kind of running out of time. But when I started in real estate, I didn't know anyone. I had no sphere of influence because I was brand new to town. And that was one of my big challenges. A lot of my competitors have lived here all their lives, and they have these huge groups of people that they already know. And I knew one person, which was the person I moved to town for. So I had to push myself outside my comfort zone. And I went to a networking event, met someone who was kind of an investor. He was young. No one was taking him seriously. We just chit-chatted for a few minutes, moved on. Well, he came back about a month later and called me and said, will you help me? No one's taking me seriously, but I have this plan and this is what I want to do. And I was like, well, I don't have anything else going on, so sure, why not? He ended up buying about 120 houses with me in the first year and a half that I was in real estate, which was great. And I could have just kept focusing on that. But 2 days before Christmas, a year and a half or 2 years into my real estate career, he called me and said, well, my mom got her real estate license, so she's going to start helping me from here on out. And the bottom just dropped out.
So you didn't have a backup plan?
Well, but I did. So I had not just rested on my laurels and said, I'm doing good with this guy. I was still trying to build this other separate kind of real estate business with first-time home buyers and that kind of niche. So I always recommend to people to have, multiple avenues because the market's going to change. It's going to shift. And could that guy, the investor I was working with, could he do now what he did 10 years ago? No.
Right.
It's a different market. So that's really important, too, is to stay up on that. And I guess the last thing I want to leave you with is that I mentioned it before, but step outside your comfort zone. I will say this, and I'm embarrassed to admit where I read it, but it was in The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump 10 years ago. When I started in real estate, we didn't have smartphones. So when you sat in an open house, that's how old I am, when you sat in an open house, you took a book with you because you didn't have anything else to do if nobody showed up. And somehow I just stumbled, was like, oh, Art of the Deal. Okay, I'll read that because he was in real estate and he wasn't really a jerk back then and whatever. He wasn't on Twitter, right? And he said that. Success is right outside my comfort zone. And that really resonated with me. And anytime I feel like I need to step it up a notch, I kind of go, okay, where am I comfortable? And I need to step right outside that. And if you think about it, it really does work. So I think that's huge for someone trying something new, which is, getting into real estate.
Well, when I find this quote from someone else, I will share that with you. I'm not thinking of it right now, but I know who it is.
Okay.
The author is by Brene Brown, but it's very similar.
Yeah, for sure. It works.
It does.
If anybody ever has any questions about being a realtor, you're welcome to message me on Facebook. That's Deb Tomaro Realtor, Tomaro, or send me an email, deb@realrealestatetoday.com, and I'm happy to answer them and always have that conversation with people because it has done amazing things for my life, so I certainly don't want to sway anyone, but I think everybody is better off if you go in with a realistic idea of what it is like. Karen, thanks for interviewing me. You did a great job.
Oh,
You're hired. So. You're official. All right, and we're going to be back next week with a show I'm super excited about. We're going to have a color consultant who's going to tell us everything we need to know about paint colors of the year, wallpaper, all kinds of good stuff. And so, make sure you tune in for that because that's going to be a super, super helpful show. Thanks for tuning in this week. This was Real Real Estate Today, your home for smart real estate.
Thank you for tuning into Real Real Estate Today. Please join your host, Deb Tomaro, for another edition every Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. Until next week, take care of your home. It's one of your most important assets.